in AT Medics, I think, and I'm sure you will not like this at all, but flu was just a necessary thing. It wasn't the most exciting thing we would ever do, but we really rebanded flu in terms of making it something that we were doing as part of our obligation to the system, as part of primary care's core requirement to protect the public and to help the other healthcare sectors that we were collaborating with. It was led by myself, but also supported by all of the GP partners in each of the regions, with intensive support and monitoring. And so one of the things that AT Medics tends to do every year is take on some other practices, and quite often they won't have been used to doing really hard flu campaigns. And so what we will often do is make sure that they've got support buddies, start doing some central recall and all of those kinds of things that will just help people to get through those first few weeks. We also had something called flu special measures, which was never that popular. But what we really have found over the last few years is that if you run behind for 2 or 3 weeks in the flu season, because of the numbers involved in catching up, it becomes really, really hard to catch up, because you're not suddenly going to stick on a whole huge amount more capacity. And quite often we find that the issue is about recall capacity. And so our special measures will very often be about a huge upsurge in recalling. We will ask people to go on to daily reporting and be calling up to 200 people a day in the surgery to make sure that we're getting, and the reason why it's 200 is because at best you'll get 40 people picking up the phone and you'll probably book about 15 or 20. So if you're trying to make a big improvement, you have to do a lot to get a few in. And we also, this is my comms director, he likes this word, multi-channel communication. And the multi-channel communication is we have a weekly newsletter. We would talk about this in our regional meetings. I have been around London to congratulate the top practices and give some of the best jabbers certificates. And we also do things like animations and so on to try and keep it really interesting and live, because as you know, it's a really long season and flu gets harder as time goes on, because you're trying to convince people that either haven't had it before or don't want it to have it. So this is really about staff motivation. And one of the key things we always do here is show each of the practices how they're doing comparatively. And Alfrosa, can you give a wave? She's here! And what everyone always wants to do is beat Whitechapel, which is Alfrosa's practice, because they are very, very good at getting people in very quickly. And I think you were 86% for over 65 this year. So the beating Whitechapel is the kind of shorthand to doing well in flu. So you know how important HCAs are during the flu season, and this is about really offering new roles and training to staff to upskill them through all of the necessary regulation to make sure that they were able to support the flu campaign, but also giving people more opportunities for their careers. In terms of our trajectory, so I've talked a lot about the trajectory, and what this means is that basically across the organisation we have the same percentage expectations for each practice each week, but what we give them is a numerical number. But for each cohort they're slightly different. So for the over 65s, you know that there is a big set of over 65s that are quite keen to have the flu jab and will want to come in. And so what we try and do is get them in early, so we have a very aggressive target for the first few weeks, and that means that we are able to spend more time on the people that are harder to get in, but also concentrate on the other trajectories. This year we also made the decision to send letters out, and I know that we've sort of moved away from letters, but we decided to send them out in about mid-October this year to try and get that population in. And actually we did find that it had some impact. By the end of the season, this is a population that we're expecting to do. We also will do for this population home visits, and we have 2 or 3 care homes where we'll just go out early and do the whole population there. For the under 65s, I've said already that, and I expect many of you in this same position, 49% of our cohorts are under 65, so it's just huge. And so what we're really trying to do here is just get a sort of steady Eddie approach where every week we're doing the same numbers. And what we're trying to get the organisation to is a stretch target of 60%. Most of our practices got into the high 50s this year, so this is still, and at the moment, at our practice link meeting, we're talking about what we need to do to just get over that last bit. But I think undoubtedly this is, for all of them, the hardest one. And then children. So I completely agree with the comments about the children's immunisations. It doesn't help that they come late, and it doesn't help that they're often on restricted order. But just one top tip on that is we have found if you phone up, you can get more, that they'll lift those restrictions. For the children, we try and do a really big focus around half term. We think, but we can't be sure, that some of the problems around the 2 and 3-year-olds is that you effectively need 2 people to come in, the child and the parent, and many parents are working. So we try to do something when we know parents will be off. And we're aiming, at the moment, our stretch target there is 50% this year. And that was because historically we had practices down in the 15-20% for this cohort. So this is our analytical tool that I was telling you about. So the red line basically shows the trajectory each week. And what you can see here is it's really easy to spot variance. So I can see that the ones generally to the right are working under the target, and I can think about what help they need to manage to get them back up again. And as I've said earlier, our findings definitely are that once people start running behind, even quite early in the season, it becomes quite difficult to catch them up.